Jackie's 28th podcast, May 8th, 2025, and we're rolling.
Hello, my name is Jackie Geringer McDermott, and we're recording live from the English Valley History Center in North English, Iowa. It's May 10th, 2025. This diary was written by my great-great-aunt, Mary Elizabeth Claypool Wade, who is known as Libby Wade. Here's a picture of Aunt Lib with her granddaughters Hazel Cobb, Evelyn Kurtz, and Belva Yoss. We will read and talk about 2 weeks in the diary and then switch to happenings around the History Center and feature stories. Sunday, December 8th, 1946. Warmest day in the history of Iowa for December. Temperature in Des Moines, 69 degrees. I thought it was 70 degrees by our thermometer. Russell is better. Went to Sigourney in the evening. Mildred's father is better, but still gets penicillin. Ward Doolin's 10-year-old child, funeral here in the p.m. Hattie here in the evening. Russell, or Tyler Wade, is Libby's 39-year-old son, who lives in the house with her. His longtime girlfriend is Mildred Reese, and Mildred Reese is right here in this picture. And down in this corner is her father, John Reese. John is in the Sigourney Hospital with pneumonia, so they went to see him. I found an article on the 10-year-old Doolin child. Her name was Barbara, and she had always been a frail child, but had attended school until her last illness. The family had moved from North English to Ollie. Hattie Newberry Killiam, who came to visit in the evening, was Libby's 55-year-old neighbor. December 9th, 1946. Still quite warm. Rained a little last night. Cold predicted coming down from Canada. Russell's still not eating much. Works but not feeling a bit good. Lots of corn coming in, and he runs the elevator. Harold Claypool came home, discharged now. He saw Jenny in San Antonio. Russell works at the Home Lumber Company a block away, and they have many bins out back to store corn. And also some of that corn was sent to other markets by train. Many people in this area engaged in agricultural jobs. Harold Claypool is Libby's great-nephew, the son of her nephew, Leighton or Happy Claypool. Harold's daughter, Linda, is a listener to my broadcasts, and we were reconnected earlier this year as she lived in North English when she was young and was my age. December 10th, 1946. Verdi was here a while. I went to lodge in the evening. Election of officers, Christmas gift exchange, draped the charter for Justine Brown and Anna Leslie. Lena was here in the p.m. a while. Still nice and warm. Sent Christmas cards. Verdi Mahana McKinstry is Libby's best friend. Lib belonged to the Rebecca Lodge, which met in the upstairs of the Locker building just a half a block away. The English Valley's History Center is in possession of the ceremonial robes and membership lists that were still in the upstairs of the building when Evans Photography owned the building in later years, and then they were transferred over here. After I do some studying and learning, I will present my findings about the IOOF Lodge, or the International Order of Oddfellows, and the Rebecca Lodge. Draping the charter means they put black fabric on it to honor their two recently deceased members, Justine Brown, the mother of baseball great Mace Brown and the grandmother of Carolyn Warner Elwood from the History Center board, and Anna Leslie, an elderly retired teacher from the East Coast who had come to North English to take care of her elderly relatives. December 11th, 1946. Another nice day. Heard we're to have a cold wave, but it's not here yet. Burslers are moving today while Mrs. Bursler is away to Iowa City. Mary R. was here, bought eggs for 84 cents a dozen. Mary Regsager, who is here in this picture, in the back row. This is a whole bunch of Regsagers in this picture, and she's right there. Was Libby's egg lady and neighbor and friend. I read in the newspaper that Lib's grandson, Walter or Bud Wade, and his wife, Frida, had bought the rental house where the Burslers were living, and they bought it from the Mahana family. Ralph Bursler, the teenage son, had been a lot of help to Libby around her yard. Bud and Frida Wade lived on East South Street for many, many years after that. December 12th, 1946. A change in the weather. Rain, then snow, then colder. The first snow of the season. Not much yet, though. December 13th, 1946. Russell sick all day. Didn't go to work. George Hornick came over and got in coal for us. Russell went to the doctor in the evening. Snowed more in the night. The roads were icy. A Taylor boy was killed in an auto accident Saturday night. He is a nephew of Mrs. Van Fleet. George Hornick was Russell's friend. The Hornicks had moved to town from southern Iowa because his mother was a teacher here. Coal would have to be taken to the cellar and maybe scooped into the furnace. We heated with a coal furnace when I was little, and I remember that it was a messy and very hard work. Norman Taylor, age 16, was killed in an accident just east of Montezuma. He was related to the Ellsworth Van Fleets and the Harry Morse family, according to the newspaper. December 14th, 1946. Belva and Michael were here. I kept him while she went uptown. Russell went to work. Libby got to babysit her first great-grandson, Mick Yoss, while his mother, her granddaughter Belva Yoss, went to do errands uptown. Sunday, December 15th, 1946. Cloudy, dark, and cold. We got a basket of oranges today. Jenny sent them. Walters are moving. Russell is some better, but has to be careful what he eats. He went to the show. The Bamboo Blonde, starring Russell Wade. Jenny. In this picture, she's right here. And Evelyn, who's in the top row. And Wayne Kurtz, her husband. There's a picture of him. And their 4-year-old daughter, Suzanne Kurtz, are on a trip to Texas. So they have sent some oranges to Libby and Russell. Walter and Frida Wade are moving to a new house they purchased just a half a block from his grandma Lib and a half a block from his parents, where they would live for years. And here is a picture of Walter Bud Wade right there. And his wife, Frida Wade, who we called Mrs. Wade because she was a teacher at the school for many years. I didn't find the advertisement for the movie that Russell Wade attended that starred Russell Wade at the North English Theater, but it did play in Marengo in January. Here's the bill for that. I circled where it says Russell Wade. And then here's the one for Williamsburg that following spring. They both had theaters. I didn't know that Williamsburg and Marengo both had theaters. December 16th, 1946. Cold and icy in the AM. Later, the ice melted and the roads were better. Had a letter from Jenny. Russell received a letter from Scotland, from a German POW that he had met at Fort Hood. Daughter-in-law Jenny Wade and the Kurtz family were on a trip down south, and Jenny sent Lib a letter. Russell had served in World War II, where he was stationed at Fort Hood, Texas. December 17th, 1946. Nice today. I went to booster class party at Newberry's. Had election of officers and gift exchange and potluck lunch. Bye, Janie. I was all in when I got home. 59-year-old Hattie Newberry Killian, who's on this side. Oh, no, she's not in this picture. And her mother, Clara Newberry, who's right there, were Lib's neighbors. They were hosting a church women's group in their home. They all attended the North English Methodist Church. December 18th, 1946. Not feeling so good. Getting lots of Christmas cards and letters and sending some too. Hattie was over in the evening. She is learning Rebecca work. I remember from when I was young that my mother sent and received lots of Christmas cards and letters too, from family and friends around the country. But it is a tradition that is slowly fading. Hattie Killian is also in the Rebecca Lodge with Libby, and they have things that they have to memorize and learn for their programs. Lib had been a member of the Rebecca Lodge since before the turn of the century, first out at Green Valley where she taught school and lived as a young bride, and then at North English. December 19th, 1946. Aunt Lou's birthday, I think 76th. Baking bread today, not quite so cold. Bertha was here. She said Dorothy Faye's little girl got burned, scalded with the tea kettle yesterday. Aunt Lou was the children's aunt, Lulu Helen Wade Steninger, the wife of Bert Steninger. Bertha Geringer was her niece. She was my paternal grandmother, and she often visits. A tea kettle was sometimes kept on the stove in those days for when a cup of hot water was needed for tea. December 20th, 1946. Clear and not as cold. Frida was here, and also Lena. Martha Sears in the PM. Ada Evers is in the hospital in Marengo, was trampled by cows. Keith Mason brought a basket of fruit for Russell, a gift from the Home Lumber Company. More Christmas cards and letters today. Lena Wallace Wade was Lib's daughter-in-law, the wife of son Warren or Mike Wade. Martha Sears was the grandmother of Kathy Kaiser O'Rourke and her brothers. And Ada Evers was the wife of KK or Bud Evers and the mother of Shirley Baines of North English. Keith Mason, who she's talking about that brought him the basket, is right here in this picture. Right there is Keith and Ruth. Keith was the father of Mike Mason from North English and his sisters, and the stepfather of Robert Moffett and Lynn Moffett and their sister Gloria Moffett. December 21st, 1946. Snowed last night. Cloudy today. I'm not feeling so good. Didn't sleep last night. Took a med for cough and it made me nervous. Gladys Bell and Neva Cheney brought me a gift from the Rebecca Lodge. Willis Thomas died suddenly in the evening. I looked up the obituary on Willis Thomas. It's right here. His wife was named Katie Van Dyke, the sister of Vic Van Dyke and other siblings. Willie and Katie Thomas had 5 girls. Fern, who was Mrs. Truman Foss, Maud, who was Mrs. Orville Moore, Grace, who was Mrs. John R. Aldinger, Ruth Emma, who was Mrs. Carol Lockridge, and Blanche, who was Mrs. Dean Smith. Sunday, December 22nd, 1946. Was alone most of the day. Russell went rabbit hunting with the boys. Warrenses went to the wedding of Allie's girl, Betty, and Russell Mooney at Mount Vernon. The folks got home from Texas. Evelyn was here a while. Allie Burton Wallace was the brother of Lena Wallace Wade. He was married to Audrey McCalla Wallace, and they lived at Mount Vernon. So Warren and Lena and their 2 girls, Phyllis and Judy, went to the wedding of Allie and Audrey's daughter, Betty Wallace, and her new husband, Russell Mooney. Granddaughter Evelyn Kurtz and her husband Wayne and daughter Sue and her grandma, Jenny Wade, had just arrived home from their trip to Texas. And that's the end of the diary portion for this week. A lot of work goes on behind the scenes to keep the History Center operating. This includes cataloging of sessions, creating displays, coordinating and preparing for monthly programs, keeping up the social media, finances, cleaning, maintenance, and providing treats for programs. There is a whole lot more activity that supports the center operations, and it is largely contributed through the time and effort by the board of directors. The History Center board is composed of Dave Jackson, president, Scott Romine, vice president, Bonnie Romine, secretary, Don Banning, treasurer, and directors Carolyn Elwood, Shelley Gerard, Alan Ackerman, and Dan Best. Please send donations to the English Valleys History Center, P.O. Box 70, North English, Iowa 52316. Our featured story this week is Miller Brick House. The information for this piece comes from a newspaper article by Carl Hogendorn in the North English Record, and from a notebook of pictures and materials saved by Lisa Miller and loaned to me by Gary and Janie Miller from North English. Miller Brick House, south of town, is the first house on the north side of 110th Street, south of town in Keokuk County. For locals, that is described as, instead of taking the Pigeon Road or the pavement towards Keswick, you go the other way or east on the gravel to the first house on the left. And here's a picture of the brick house. This is the back side of it, right there. And then over here on this side is the other frame house that was built later. That's the color version of the picture. And then we have a storyboard at the center about the Miller brick house. And you can see in these pictures, at the top is the picture of the house right there. And over here on this side is a newspaper article that Lisa Miller had written about it, was featured in, that was written by Carl Hogendorn about the brick house. The Miller brick house was built in 1856 by Noah Miller. As his grandson Liesl said, Noah was born in the hills of Virginia in 1829 and died on the prairies of Iowa in 1912. Noah was the son of Michael Miller and Mary Sanger. Noah married Frances Bowen in Virginia in 1851. After their first two children, Sarah Ann and Hiram, were born, they headed to Iowa in 1855 and lived in a log cabin where son Ben was born until they built their brick house. Noah and Frances had a total of 12 children. Their other 9 children were Mike, Mary, Ellen, Jenny, Annabelle, Noah Samuel, John, Nettie, and May. And here's a picture of Noah Miller. And this is in the North English 150-year book. And here's a picture of Noah and Frances Bowen Miller, his wife. They're the ones that had so many kids. The bricks for the brick house were obtained from Smith's Brick and Tile Factory in North English. The Millers also built a huge barn on the place with native timber and lumber hauled from Iowa City. The barn was originally for horses, but in later years was converted for dairy cattle. In 1895, when he was 66 years old, Noah built a frame house 100 feet west of the brick house for them to live in. The frame house was later moved to Maple Crest Ranch just south of the Miller brick house. Noah's son-in-law, the Reverend Dan Miller, and his wife Ellen, rented the brick house and the farm for $600 per year. Reverend Dan Miller was a minister in the Brethren Church who performed 30 weddings in the house. There were 2 fireplaces in the living room, and the walls were 16 inches thick. Noah's son, Noah Samuel Miller, who was called N.S. or Sam Miller, and his wife Rosa Schaff were the parents of Liesl Miller and his twin Cecil, who were born in 1896, Esther Kirkpatrick, Nellie Hohenschel, Lewis or Dutch Miller, and Edith Carter, all who lived in the North English area. And several of the children are on the storyboard. Let's see if I can get it straight up. That would help. Down here in the bottom, that's several of the children right there. Noah Samuel Miller was quite the entrepreneur, and he started Miller Hardware in North English. Others who lived in the brick house over the years were the Ben Millers, Orson Kirkpatricks, Tom Hohenschels, Jess Millers, Liesl Millers, Dale Lowndes, James Delosiers, Olin Dysons, Bert Murchisons, and the Forrest Morsons, who still had the original dinner bell and both fireplaces when they lived there. And I heard after that Harry Greens lived there, and it might have been other rentals, I don't know. When Larry and Betty Kirkpatrick bought the home in 1971, they started extensively remodeling it. I found a story in the North English Record where Betty said she stripped 25 layers of wallpaper from the walls. They had an open house in 1979. The brick house is now owned by the Morrisons. With the permission of his family, I'm going to copy the little book that Lisa Miller wrote because he talks about other things that might be of interest. One thing that I will feature in next week's broadcast is his first-hand account of the 4th of July celebrations at Thomas's Grove that we learned about last week. While I was looking for pictures this week, I found a couple other pictures. This here is Leland and Mildred Miller and his parents, Blanche and Liesl Miller, in their centennial clothes in 1954. And this picture I thought was really interesting. It's in front of Miller Hardware, and it's at centennial time. They put up a hitching rail on Main Street for horses. Pictured in the picture are Liesl Miller, Leighton Reese, Irma Reese, Ferletta Donahue, Hazel Dennison, Blanche Miller, Mildred Miller, Leland Miller, Willard or Dad Thurman, Fulton or Doc Donahue, and Frank Mullen. In this picture, you can see the plate glass windows in Miller Hardware, the front of the locker building on the corner, and a peek at the Home Lumber Company a half a block north. All of this would have been directly west of Lib Wade's home. These pictures are the photography of Noel Montz of Webster, are in a 3-ring notebook at the North English Library. Correspondence this week. Mark Claypool said, Jackie, another amazing week of memories. And just to let you know, Lauren Miller lived in Golden, Colorado, and he would often come to my house in Arvada, which were both suburbs of Denver, and visit my dad, that would have been Gene Claypool, when he was still able to travel out west to see me. Thanks again for all of your hard work. I heard from Pam Eru Rowe. I love what you're doing. Thank you. I also heard from Bunny Pfeiffer. My grandpa was Lec Wade. Alta Berry, my great aunt, who was married to George Berry, was also mentioned. I was only 9 when Grandpa died, so I only have a few memories. I love hearing bits of history about the Wade family. Keep up the good work. I ran into Lynn Morrison when I was getting my oil changed. I told him I'm working on the Texaco fire story and also a story on his grandparents, Theodore and Velma Vanaken, and their gas station. We will also have a story about Smoky Row or East Washington Street, where I grew up someday, along with the Morrison kids, the Holden kids, etc., etc. I also talked to Mick Wade, the grandson of Lec Wade, this weekend. We'll have more about that later. Keith Kaufman from South English, stopped by my setup as he was leaving coffee time at the History Center last week. He said that his parents bought an International tractor from Miller Hardware at the Implement Building in North English. We also received an acquisition this week from Mary Ellen Malloy, who stops at the History Center often. It is a Keswick Centennial book. So thank you so much, Mary Ellen. Connie Holden Hannah asked me if there's anything that was mentioned in the diary about her parents' wedding in 1946. I said I didn't think so, but I would look in the newspaper. You might remember her mother, Alice Holden. She had a really strong Southern accent, and now you will know why. North English man weds Eastern girl. Sunday afternoon, January 27th, that would have been 1946, was the scene of a wedding of Miss Alice Jester of Newberry, South Carolina, to Edwin W. Holden of North English. The double ring ceremony was performed at the home of the officiating minister, the Reverend B.H. Harvey of Newberry, South Carolina. The couple stood before an improvised altar of palms with lighted white candles on either side. Mr. and Mrs. Holden were unattended. They entered the room to the strains of Lonegren's Wedding March. The bride wore a 3-piece black suit with black and white accessories, and her shoulder corsage was of white carnations. Mrs. Holden is the daughter of R.B. Jester and the late Mrs. Jester of Newberry, South Carolina. Since her graduation from high school, she has been employed by the East Wells Sportswear Corporation. Mr. Holden, the son of Mr. and Mrs. E.M. Holden of North English, is a graduate of North English High School and recently received his discharge after serving with the Army Air Corps for 3 years. After a wedding trip, Mr. and Mrs. Holden will make their home in North English. Our condolences this week to the family of a member of my class of 1973. We learned that Nilce Zangrande, our foreign exchange student from Brazil, has passed away. We are so sad to hear about this. And here's a picture of Nilce. This is from our page, is right here. If you have any pictures you would like to share of anyone we have featured or anyone from an upcoming program, please let me know. I also wanted to let you know that the History Center has applied for an Iowa County Foundation grant to purchase a computer and other equipment to help with my broadcasts, so I don't have to run them from my iPhone. We also hope to be able to get a program so that I can show pictures on the screen, sort of like a commercial, so that I don't have to run them off on my black and white copier at home and then hold them up and point to people. We have also received some generous donations to help with the project, and I am very, very grateful that you support my history work. I would also like to mention that the next English Valley's Alumni Luncheon at Bryant's in the Williamsburg Mall will be held at 11:30 a.m. on June 30th. Please contact Alice Stramer or Linda Carter for reservations. Our next program at the History Center will be on Sunday, June 29th at 2 p.m. Sandra Host will be giving the program on Iowa's one-room schools. There is a flyer on the EV Graduates page if you need more information about when different decades of classes will meet during the alumni reunion on July 26th. The parade is at 10:30 a.m. Starting at noon, snacks and drinks will be available at the History Center, paid for by the sales of the Every Wanted EV book for 2025, with pictures of all the graduates from 1957. And I need to get with Scott Romine and find out when that's exactly going to be due, but I think it's soon. I'll be doing a live broadcast before the parade at 9 a.m. and staying around after the parade to visit with alumni. In another note, Dave Jackson is all completely sold out of Hinkletown books right now. He's looking at other options to see how to put it online or something else. We are also interested in learning about historical English Valley's items that you might wish to donate to the History Center. Please contact Dave Jackson, Scott Romine, or any board member to donate. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.